Within its mere 200 pages, The Great Gatsby has somehow managed to capture a variety of important themes that are found in the American literary tradition. These themes are often signified by the use of different motifs and symbols in the novel. In this video, I will be discussing 4 important themes: the hauntingly beautiful American dream, the gap between the rich and the poor, a new religion known as capitalism, and last but not least, the machine in the garden. Perhaps we can start with a term that everyone has heard of, a term that can really be applied to every single piece of writing about the United States of America: the American dream. The American dream is a unique and mythical vision manifested by the American imagination. When we think about the idea of the American dream, it is full of paradoxes and contradictions. It is what we feed on and also what feeds on us. It is about the vision of an egalitarian and democratic society built upon the land of the free, but of course in contrast to the violent yet tangible reality: a White House built upon the bodies of black slaves and indigenous people. The epitome of the American dream is embodied in the infamous green light on Daisy's dock. Before Nick meets Gatsby in person, he has watched the mysterious millionaire from afar and hears the description of what Gatsby is doing in the dark. He stretched out his arm toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily I glanced seaward, and distinguished nothing except a single green light, minute and far away. That might have been the end of a dock. The green light, like the American dream, is something that we can never grasp with our hands, much like the idea of love or human imagination or the meanings of our words. It cannot be felt or touched. From a distance, the green light is seductive and luring, much like Daisy's beauty and the appeal of wealth. Once we have a closer look, reality often fails to meet our expectations. Whether it is just a green light on the dock on Long Island, or an Instagram story posted by an influencer, or maybe even a Tinder profile that makes you want to swipe right, these things are most likely going to disappoint you once you take the filter away. If the distant green light represents the unattainable American dream, then the Valley of Ashes is the inferno in which the working class slowly rots to death. This is the Valley of Ashes, a fantastic farm where ashes grow like weeds into ridges and hills and grotesque gardens, where ashes take the forms of houses and chimneys and rising smoke, and finally, with a transcendent effort, of men who move dimly and already crumbling through the powdery air. Are these ashes or men? Is it reality, an optical illusion, or Nick's imagination? While the rich play golf and ride horses and sell alcohol behind the counters, the working class men turn into these hybrid beings, indistinguishable from the ashes around them. Ashes, these inanimate specks, are more animated than human beings, where they have agency to move and to create. Not only is the passage meant to critique the dehumanization of the lower societal class members in the 1920s, it is also an accusation made towards Nick, our narrator, and a member of the aristocracy. A bigger question that we may think about is why Fitzgerald chose Nick's perspective to guide us through Gatsby's story. From his point of view, we get a romanticized and surreal image of the Valley of Ashes, marked by descriptions such as fantastic farm and grotesque gardens. However, we all know that there is nothing poetic about living in this harsh and hopelessly unforgiving place. Nick's version of the Valley of Ashes offers not a solemn consolation, but another instance exemplifying the gap between the rich and the poor. In the Valley of Ashes, you can find the eyes of Dr. T.J. Ackerberg, also known as the eyes of God. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Ackerberg are blue and gigantic. Their retinas are 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles which pass over a non-existent nose. In a novel where sins and gins overflow, God has become something that is hidden in the background. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Ackerberg hovers just above the Valley of Ashes on a billboard sign. complete with an obnoxious pair of enormous yellow spectacles. Of course, most people will tell you that these blue and gigantic eyes symbolize the eyes of God, since they are always watching and judging you. It is definitely not wrong to think so, but perhaps the characters in this novel are worshipping a different kind of God, and another form of religion, capitalism. They revere consumption over spirituality, they idolize celebrities rather than Jesus Christ, they glorify the empire of wealth rather than the kingdom of God. Dr. T.J. Echoberg is the God worshipped by the aristocracy, stopping anyone who tries to escape their social class. Brave souls such as Gatsby and Myrtle are the sacrifices. Cars plays a huge role in the novel. There are multiple scenes or discussions concerning car accidents. We may recall that after one of Gatsby's party, a car falls into the ditch and the driver tries to carry on driving while the car is missing a wheel. Don't we all feel like the driver sometimes? Life happens and the show must go on. But Fitzgerald is not simply trying to tell us how the incident mirrors our ordinary lives, rather he's exposing the fatal flaw of American society, that everyone is pretending that everything is fine and okay and they just go on with their lives after the First World War. A generation of young men and their families were traumatized. I think that we can all relate to this as we try to carry on with our lives during a pandemic. Well, Nick's description of Gatsby's Rolls Royce suggests a connection to his fantasy of the green light from Daisy's house. It was a rich cream color, bright with nickel, swollen here and there in its monstrous length with triumphant hat boxes and supper boxes, and tool boxes, and terraced with a labyrinth of windshields that mirrored a dozen suns. Sitting down behind many layers of glass in a sort of green leather conservatory, we started to town. The green leather conservatory is perhaps another Gatsby's attempt to preserve the delicate and fragile petals of a daisy. Get it? Daisy Buchanan and Daisy the flower. But it seems that conservatory only nurtures the growth of Gatsby's unstoppable imagination, while it undermines Daisy's humanity and dims her into an artificial creation in Gatsby's mind. Needless to say, cars are also a destructive instrument that annihilates any hope or possibility of escape for the working class. Automobiles are tools that cripple a woman in both mind and body. They damage Myrtle Wilson's body and crush the innocence of Daisy Buchanan by turning her into a murderer. These killing machines are the accomplices of the materialistic and arrogant upper-class men, consuming and corrupting the world with their greed and power. As opinions about The Great Gatsby goes, its ability to explore various themes in its condensed pages add to its greatness, or its approach in reflecting reality with Fitzgerald's realistic and nearly unlikable characters raises its relevance to the point where the story may hit a little too close to home. It gets too real sometimes, you know? In fact, while Fitzgerald did have the talent for crafting characters and conversations, his observations of the inanimate, inhuman objects, and his ability to bring these objects to life offer us an incredible insight into the intertwined relationship we have with the material world in a capitalist society. What would we do without our smartphones or laptops or cars? What would happen if we had no internet connection? Here's something to think about until the next video. Thank you for watching.